The morning sun cut through the pine trees as Raymond Shepard loaded the last suitcase into his truck. His daughter, Emma, stood by the passenger door, her excitement barely contained despite the early hour. 22 years old and heading to a marine biology program in California. Ray still couldn't quite believe it. "Dad, we're going to miss my flight if you keep triple-checking everything," Emma said, though her smile showed she didn't mind. Ray grinned and slammed the tailgate shut. "Just making sure. Your mother would kill me if I forgot something." Emma's expression flickered slightly at the mention of Beatrice, but she recovered quickly. Ray noticed, he always noticed, but said nothing. The last few months had been tense at home, though he'd attributed it to Emma leaving for school and Beatrice adjusting to the empty nest. The drive to the airport took 90 minutes, winding through the mountains of northern Idaho. Ray's wilderness camp sat on 200 acres of pristine forest land, inherited from his grandfather 15 years ago. What had started as a modest family retreat had grown into a successful survival training center under Ray's management. Corporate team-building exercises, youth wilderness programs, private survival courses. The business had flourished, especially in the last 5 years. "I'm going to miss this place," Emma said, watching the trees blur past. "But I'm not going to miss the tension." Ray glanced at her. "What tension?" Emma gave him a look that said she knew he wasn't that oblivious. "Mom's been weird for months, Dad. Secretive. And Grandpa Gilbert has been hanging around way more than usual." Gilbert Strickland, Ray's father-in-law, had always been a difficult man, a retired attorney with an inflated sense of his own importance and a barely concealed disdain for Ray's rustic lifestyle, as he called it. But Emma was right. Gilbert had been visiting more frequently, always closeted away with Beatrice in hushed conversations that stopped the moment Ray entered the room. "Your mother's just stressed about you leaving," Ray said, though the words felt hollow even to him. "And you know your grandfather. He likes to feel involved." "Dad," Emma's voice was serious now. "Promise me you'll pay attention. Something's off. I tried talking to Mom about it, but she just got defensive." Ray reached over and squeezed her hand. "I promise. But today is about you. Let's focus on this adventure you're starting." They spent the rest of the drive talking about her program, the research opportunities, the apartment she'd be sharing with 2 other students. By the time they reached the airport, Emma's excitement had fully returned. Ray helped her check her bags, walked her as far as security would allow. "I love you, kiddo," he said, pulling her into a tight hug. "You're going to do amazing things." "Love you too, Dad." Emma pulled back, her eyes shining. "And seriously, pay attention. Trust your instincts." He watched until she disappeared through security, then headed back to his truck. The drive home should have been peaceful, a chance to decompress. Instead, Emma's words echoed in his mind. Trust your instincts. Those instincts had kept him alive during his years working search and rescue before taking over the camp. They'd helped him track lost hikers through snowstorms and identify dangerous wildlife signs. Maybe it was time to start applying them to his personal life. His phone rang just as he merged onto the highway. Rosario, or his name, flashed on the screen. Rosa had been their housekeeper for 8 years, a quiet woman in her 50s who'd become almost part of the family. She rarely called him directly. "Rosa? Everything okay?" The sound that came through the phone made his blood run cold. Rosa was crying. "No," sobbing, trying to catch her breath between words. "Mr. Ray, please don't come home." Her voice was desperate, terrified. "Check the security camera. Check it right now. I'm so sorry. Rosa, what's wrong? What's happening?" Ray's heart hammered as he signaled to pull over. "I came early to clean before my daughter's appointment, and I saw—" "Oh God, Mr. Ray, just check the camera. The living room. Don't come home. Please." The line went dead. Ray guided his truck onto the shoulder, his hands steady despite the adrenaline flooding his system. He pulled out his phone and opened the security app. He'd installed cameras throughout the house 2 years ago after a string of burglaries in the area. Beatrice had complained about the invasion of privacy, but Ray had insisted. Now his fingers trembled slightly as he navigated to the live feed from the living room. The image loaded. Ray's world tilted. Beatrice stood in the center of their living room, her face set in an expression of cold determination he'd never seen before. Next to her, Gilbert Strickland held a leather document folder open, both of them examining papers spread across the coffee table. But that wasn't what made Ray's breath catch. On the table between them lay a large Ziploc bag filled with white powder, too much to be anything innocent. Next to it, several prescription bottles. And in Gilbert's other hand, what looked like Ray's business checkbook. As Ray watched, frozen, Beatrice picked up one of the prescription bottles and opened it, dumping pills into her palm. She said something to her father, and he nodded, producing a small scale from his briefcase. They were measuring something, documenting something. Ray zoomed in on the documents. Even through the phone screen, he could make out his own forged signature on what appeared to be bank statements. His letterhead, his accounts. The implications crashed over him like an avalanche. They were framing him. Drugs, forged documents, embezzlement. No, wait. Ray forced himself to think clearly. The checkbook, the business documents, the sheer amount of what was clearly meant to look like cocaine. This wasn't simple embezzlement. This was elaborate. This was designed to destroy him completely. His phone buzzed with a text from Rosa. They don't know I saw. I left through back door. I'm scared, Mr. Ray. What do we do? Ray's mind raced. Emma's warnings. The secret of behavior. Gilbert's increased presence. How long had they been planning this? And why? The camp was successful, but surely not worth this level of betrayal. Unless understanding hit him. The camp sat on land the developers had been eyeing for years. Prime mountain property, adjacent to a planned resort expansion. Ray had turned down every offer, unwilling to destroy the wilderness his grandfather had loved. But if he were arrested, convicted, sent to prison, Beatrice as his wife would have power of attorney. She could sell. Clever, Ray whispered to himself. Clever and ruthless. But they'd made one mistake. They'd underestimated both Rosa's loyalty and Ray's security system. And now Ray knew. He thought about calling the police immediately, but hesitated. What would he tell them? That his wife and father-in-law were in his house. They lived there. The drugs and forged documents. They'd claim they just found them. Were about to call the police themselves. They'd turn around, make him look paranoid, unstable. Especially if Gilbert had already laid groundwork with local authorities about Ray's concerning behavior. No, Ray needed to be smarter than that. He pulled up his contacts and found Matt Bender, an Idaho State Police detective he'd become friends with during various search and rescue operations. They'd worked together on 3 missing persons cases, and Matt owed him more than one favor. Matt, I need your help, Ray said when the detective answered. And I need you to trust me without asking too many questions yet. That's never a good start to a conversation, Ray. What's going on? My wife and her father are in my house right now, planting drugs and forged documents to frame me. I have video evidence. But if I confront them or call the local police, they'll spin it. I need someone I trust. There was a pause. You're serious. Dead serious. I just dropped Emma at the airport, and my housekeeper called me crying, told me to check my cameras. Matt, they have what looks like kilos of cocaine and documents with my forged signature. Where are you now? Pulled over on Highway 95, about 90 minutes from home. Don't go home. Meet me at the camp. I'm 40 minutes out. I'll call for backup, but quietly. If this is what you say it is, we need to handle it carefully. Matt's voice had shifted into professional mode. Ray, are you sure about this? Absolutely certain? I'm looking at the video feed right now. I can send it to you. Do that. And Ray, don't do anything stupid. Let's handle this legally. Ray ended the call and texted the video file to Matt, then called Rosa back. She answered immediately. Mr. Ray, thank God. Are you okay? I'm fine, Rosa. Where are you? I'm parked 2 blocks away. I didn't know what to do. Should I call the police? No, I've already contacted someone I trust. Rosa, I need you to do something for me. Can you still see the house from where you are? Yes, I can see the driveway. Good. Watch it. If they leave, call me immediately and tell me which direction they go. But stay hidden. These people are dangerous. What are they doing, Mr. Ray? Why would Mrs. Beatrice? Her voice broke. I don't know the full story yet, but I'm going to find out. Rosa, thank you. You might have saved my life today. After hanging up, Ray sat for a moment, forcing himself to breathe steadily. The shock was wearing off, replaced by cold clarity. 15 years. 15 years he'd been married to Beatrice. They'd built a life together, raised Emma together. Or had they? How much of it had been real? He thought back over the past year. The way Beatrice had pushed him to expand the camp, take out loans for renovations. The way she'd insisted he add her name to certain accounts for simplicity. The way she'd encouraged him to update his will after his grandfather's death, making her the executor. Small things he'd agreed to because he trusted her, because that's what married couples did. She'd been positioning pieces on a chessboard, and he'd been too blind to see it. Ray pulled back onto the highway, but instead of heading home, he drove toward the camp. The facility sat 15 miles past his house, deeper into the mountains. 20 buildings scattered across 200 acres. The main lodge, cabin clusters, a mess hall, equipment sheds, and his private office. During summer, the place hummed with activity. But it was late September now, and the season had wound down. Only a few late-season bookings remained. The drive gave him time to think. If Matt was 40 minutes out, Ray would beat him there by about 10 minutes. Enough time to secure certain things. Because whatever happened next, Ray needed to protect what his grandfather had built. The turnoff to the camp appeared, marked by a hand-carved wooden sign. Shepherd's Mountain Survival Camp, ST 1987. Ray's grandfather had been a legend in these mountains, a World War II veteran who'd spent his post-war years teaching survival skills and fostering respect for the wilderness. He'd taught Ray everything. Tracking, shelter building, fire starting, reading weather patterns, understanding animal behavior. More importantly, he taught Ray to trust his instincts and never ignore danger signs. Ray parked near the main lodge and went straight to his office in the back. He unlocked a floor safe hidden beneath a loose board, known only to him, and pulled out 3 things. Backup drives containing complete copies of his business records, his grandfather's original deed to the property, and a loaded Glock 19. He wasn't planning to use the gun, but he wasn't going to be unarmed either. His phone buzzed. Matt, watch the video. Holy shit. On my way with 2 other detectives. Don't engage. Another buzz. Rosa, they're leaving, getting into Mr. Gilbert's car. Mrs. Beatrice looks upset. Ray's pulse quickened. Which direction? Toward the mountains. Toward the camp. Of course. They must have realized Rosa saw something. And if they were coming to the camp, it meant they were desperate. Desperate people were dangerous. Ray texted Matt. They're heading here. ETA, unknown. Matt's response was immediate. Sit tight. We're 25 minutes out. Do not confront them. But Ray's mind was already working. The camp was his territory. Every trail, every structure, every hiding spot. He knew them intimately. If Beatrice and Gilbert were coming here, they weren't coming to talk. They were coming to finish what they'd started, probably to plant more evidence or to harm him directly while his alibi, dropping Emma at the airport, would make his presence here seem innocent. He moved quickly, gathering equipment from the storage room. A handheld radio, a portable camera, rope, a first aid kit. He wasn't going to hide, but he wasn't going to be stupid either. 20 minutes later, he heard a car engine. Ray watched from the lodge window as Gilbert's silver BMW pulled into the parking area. His father-in-law emerged first, looking around nervously. Beatrice followed, and even from a distance, Ray could see the tension in her movements. Then a third person stepped out of the back seat. Julian Kimball. Ray recognized him immediately, a real estate developer who'd been trying to buy the camp for 3 years. Young, slick, wearing an expensive suit that looked absurd in the mountain setting. Ray had turned down his offers repeatedly, each one more aggressive than the last. So that was it. The affair Emma had suspected, the financial motive, the whole elaborate scheme. It all crystallized in that moment. Beatrice and Julian. Gilbert facilitating. The camp as the prize. Ray's jaw clenched. They thought they'd already won. Julian said something, and Beatrice nodded. Gilbert pulled a large duffel bag from the trunk, probably containing more evidence to plant. They started walking toward the lodge, then stopped. Beatrice pulled out her phone, presumably trying to call Ray. He ignored it. Looking for me? Ray's voice carried across the parking area as he stepped out onto the lodge porch. All 3 of them froze. Beatrice's face went pale. Gilbert's expression shifted from surprise to anger. Julian simply looked annoyed, as if Ray were an inconvenience rather than a person. Raymond, Beatrice said, and he heard the false sweetness in her voice, the tone she used when she wanted something. I thought you'd be on your way back from the airport. We were just what? Ray cut her off, walking down the steps slowly, deliberately. Just coming to plant more evidence? Just coming to finish framing me for crimes I didn't commit? The mask fell. Beatrice's face hardened. Gilbert straightened, his lawyer instincts kicking in. Careful what you accuse people of, Raymond. Slander is a serious. I have video, Ray said simply. The house. The living room. All of it. The drugs, the forged documents, everything. Rosa called me before you even knew she was there. He watched the implications sink in. Beatrice's face went from pale to ashen. Gilbert's hand tightened on the duffel bag. But Julian smiled. See, this is the problem with you, Shepard, Julian said, stepping forward. You're always one step behind. You think a video matters? We'll destroy it. We'll say it was doctored. And by the time anyone investigates, you'll be dead. The casual way he said it, dead, sent ice through Ray's veins. Julian, shut up, Beatrice hissed, but the developer ignored her. You were supposed to be arrested today. Nice and clean. You'd go away for drugs and fraud. Beatrice would sell us the land, and everyone would be happy. Well, everyone except you, obviously. But you had to have that fucking housekeeper who actually cares about you. That's enough. Gilbert snapped, but the damage was done. No, Dad, let him talk, Ray said, his voice deadly calm. He was recording this on his phone in his pocket. Matt had taught him that trick during investigations. I want to hear the full plan. Julian laughed. What does it matter? You're here alone. Gilbert brought insurance. He nodded at the duffel bag. See, after you have your unfortunate accident, probably a fall during a solo hike, so tragic, we'll plan enough evidence to make sure no one questions it. Depressed about Emma leaving, drug problem no one knew about, financial troubles. It all fits. You're insane, Ray said. No, I'm a businessman. This land is worth $15 million. Your camp makes, what, $300,000 a year? You're wasting it. But people like you never understand. You cling to sentiment while the rest of us see opportunity. Ray, please, Beatrice spoke up, her voice cracking. It doesn't have to be this way. We can work something out. Sell the camp, take your share, and leave. Start somewhere new. Ray looked at his wife, his soon-to-be ex-wife, and felt nothing but disgust. How long? How long have you been planning this? She hesitated, then seemed to realize there was no point in lying anymore. 2 years. Since Julian first made the offer. But I didn't want you dead, Ray. That was never. She shot a glare at Julian. That wasn't part of the plan. Plans change, Julian said with a shrug. Your husband's too stubborn to simply walk away. So we adapt. Ray heard it then, the distant sound of vehicles on the mountain road. Matt was close. He just needed to keep them talking a little longer. You won't get away with this, Ray said. Even without the video, you think people won't ask questions? Emma will know something's wrong. Rosa saw everything. Rosa, Gilbert sneered, speaking for the first time in minutes. An undocumented immigrant you've been employing illegally for years? Who do you think they'll believe? Her or us? Ray's hands clenched into fists. Rosa has her papers. I helped her get them 3 years ago. She's a citizen. That surprised them. Good. Keep them off balance. The engine sounds were getting closer. Julian heard them too, his head snapping toward the road. Who did you call? State Police, Ray said calmly. Detective Matt Bender. Old friend of mine. He's watched the video, and he's about 30 seconds away. Panic flashed across Beatrice's face. Gilbert started backing toward the BMW. But Julian's hand went to his waistband, pulling out a pistol. Then I guess we're doing this the hard way, he said, raising the weapon. Everything happened at once. Ray dove behind a support column as Julian fired, the shot splintering wood inches from his head. Beatrice screamed. Gilbert stumbled, dropping the duffel bag. And then 2 police vehicles came roaring into the parking area, sirens blaring. Drop the weapon. Matt's voice boomed through a loudspeaker. Julian Kimball, drop the weapon now. But Julian didn't drop it. Instead, he grabbed Beatrice, using her as a shield, the gun pressed to her temple. "Back off. I'll kill her." Ray's mind raced. Matt and his colleagues had their weapons drawn, but they couldn't risk a shot with Beatrice in the way. Gilbert had frozen, his face a mask of terror. And Julian had just made his final mistake. Because Ray knew something Julian didn't. During their marriage, Ray had taught Beatrice self-defense, including what to do if someone grabbed her from behind. They'd practiced it dozens of times during their early years together, back when Ray still ran occasional self-defense seminars. Ray caught Beatrice's eye. For a moment, their gazes locked. He saw fear there, but also recognition. She knew what he was thinking. He gave the smallest nod. Beatrice stomped down hard on Julian's instep, exactly as Ray had taught her, while simultaneously dropping her weight and ducking her head. Julian's grip faltered for just a second. Long enough. Matt's shot was perfect, hitting Julian's shoulder. The developer went down screaming, his gun skittering across the gravel. In seconds, officers had all three of them in custody. Matt approached Ray, his expression grim. "You okay?" "I'm okay." Ray's hands were shaking now, adrenaline crashing. "Did you get all of that?" "Every word." Vehicle cam caught the whole thing. "Combined with your house video and what you recorded on your phone, we've got enough to put them away for a long time." Matt looked at where Beatrice sat in the back of a police car, her face in her hands. "I'm sorry, Ray. I know this isn't easy." Ray just nodded, unable to speak. The woman he'd loved, had built a life with, had just tried to destroy him. For money. For land. For a man who'd been willing to kill him without hesitation. As more police vehicles arrived and officers began processing the scene, Ray walked away from the chaos, heading deeper into the camp. He found himself at his grandfather's memorial, a simple stone marker overlooking the valley. "I kept your promise, Gramps," Ray said quietly. "The land stays. Whatever happens next, I'll make sure it stays." His phone buzzed. A text from Emma. "Landed safely. Miss you already. Everything okay at home?" Ray stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "Everything's going to be fine. Call you tonight. Love you." He'd tell her the truth eventually. But not today. Today, she could enjoy her new adventure without this darkness touching her. The sun was setting behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Ray sat down on the bench his grandfather had built decades ago, and finally allowed himself to feel the weight of what had happened. The betrayal, the danger, the narrow escape, but also the relief. Because he'd trusted his instincts. He'd acted carefully, legally, smartly. And he'd won. Though this, Ray knew, was only the beginning. The interrogation rooms at the Idaho State Police headquarters smelled like bad coffee and desperation. Ray sat in a conference room across from Matt, watching through one-way glass as Gilbert Strickland's lawyer, ironically, one of Gilbert's former partners, tried to negotiate some kind of deal. "He's claiming coercion," Matt said, his arms crossed. "Says Julian manipulated both him and Beatrice, that he was trying to protect his daughter." "That's bullshit," Ray said flatly. "You saw the video. Gilbert was measuring out that powder, staging those documents. He knew exactly what he was doing." "I know, and the DA knows. But his lawyer's good." Matt sighed. "Julian's not talking at all." Lawyered up immediately. "But Beatrice." He trailed off, glancing at Ray. "She wants to talk to you." Ray's jaw tightened. "No, Ray." I said no. "Anything she needs to say, she can say to her lawyer or to you. I'm done being manipulated by her." Matt nodded slowly. "Fair enough. For what it's worth, she's claiming Julian coerced her too. Says the affair started a year ago, that he slowly convinced her they could get the land without hurting you, but then everything spiraled out of control. Do you believe her?" Matt considered. "I think she's telling a version of the truth, but a version that paints her as a victim instead of a co-conspirator. The forensic accountant we brought in found something interesting, though. Beatrice has been siphoning money from your joint accounts for 18 months. Small amounts, but consistent. It all went into an LLC owned by, guess who? Julian Kimball." Ray's hands clenched. She was funding him. "Looks like it. We're still tracking down all the financial connections, but it's clear this was premeditated and long-term." "The drug setup at your house?" "That was just the final stage. They'd been laying groundwork for months. Over the next 3 hours, Matt walked Ray through the evidence. Security footage from Ray's house showing Gilbert and Beatrice on 4 separate occasions, always when Ray was away at camp. Bank records showing the transferred funds. Text messages between Beatrice and Julian, carefully vague, but damning when combined with everything else. And most damning of all, a recorded conversation from Julian's car that had been caught on a nearby doorbell camera during one of his visits to the Shepherd home. "Here's the thing," Matt said, pulling up the audio file. "We got lucky. Your neighbor, Mrs. Chun, she has a high-end security system. Caught Julian and Beatrice talking in his car in your driveway about 6 weeks ago." He pressed play. Julian's voice came through tinny but clear. "Needs to be untraceable. Gilbert says he can get pharmaceutical-grade stuff that'll look like Ray's been stockpiling prescription meds. Combined with the financial records, we make it look like he's been running some kind of operation out of the camp." Beatrice's response: "But what if someone investigates too closely?" "They won't. Small-town cops, rural area, respectable family man with no history? They'll take it at face value. Especially after Gilbert plants the seed about Ray's recent stress and erratic behavior with a local sheriff." A pause, then Beatrice: "And if he finds out?" "He won't. And if he does, well, accidents happen in the mountains all the time." The recording ended. Ray felt sick. "That's premeditation," Matt said quietly. "That's conspiracy to commit fraud, conspiracy to commit murder, and about 6 other charges. Combined with what Julian said at the camp and what we found in his office, including a contract to purchase your land that had already been signed by Beatrice, forging your signature, we've got them cold." "What about Emma?" Ray asked suddenly. "Could they go after her? Try to claim she's involved, or use her as leverage somehow?" Matt shook his head. "Emma's clean. We've already checked her finances, communications, everything. She had no idea. In fact, some of her texts to Beatrice show she was suspicious that something was wrong." He pulled up a message from 3 weeks ago. Emma to Beatrice: "Mom, why is Grandpa always over? And why are you being so secretive? Dad's starting to notice." Beatrice's response: "Don't worry about it. Focus on your own preparations. Everything's fine. Emma, it doesn't feel fine. I'm worried about Dad." "She tried to warn you," Matt said. "Multiple times, looks like." Ray remembered their conversation in the truck. "Promise me you'll pay attention." His daughter had seen what he'd been too trusting to see. His phone rang. "Speak of the devil." Emma's name flashed on screen. Ray stepped out of the conference room to answer, walking down the hallway to find a quiet corner. "Hey, sweetheart. Dad, what the hell is going on?" Emma's voice was tight with stress. "I just got a call from Aunt Sarah. She saw something on Facebook about arrests at the camp. She said Mom was taken into custody." Ray closed his eyes. He'd hoped to have more time before Emma found out. "Emma, I need you to sit down. Are you somewhere private?" "I'm in my apartment." "Dad, you're scaring me." So Ray told her. Not everything, not the most brutal details, but enough. The setup, the betrayal, Julian's involvement, the confrontation. Emma was silent for a long moment after he finished. "Mom tried to frame you." Her voice was barely a whisper. "She was going to Dad. He was going to kill you. But he didn't. I'm fine. The police have them all in custody." Oh my God. He could hear her crying now. "I knew something was wrong. I knew it. Why didn't I push harder? Why didn't I?" "Emma, stop. You did push. You warned me. And you couldn't have known how bad it was. None of this is your fault. Is it true about the affair? With that developer guy?" "Looks like it." More crying. "I'm coming home. I'm booking a flight right now." "No," Ray said firmly. "You're staying there. You're starting your program, your life. That's what matters. I'm handling things here." "Dad." "Emma, please. The best thing you can do for me right now is to be okay. To not let this destroy your future. Your mom made her choices, but you have your whole life ahead of you. Don't let her mistakes take that away." They talked for another 20 minutes, Emma alternating between anger, grief, and disbelief. Ray answered her questions as honestly as he could, trying to shelter her from the worst of it while not lying. Finally, reluctantly, she agreed to stay in California, but made him promise to call her daily with updates. After hanging up, Ray slumped against the wall. 24 hours ago, his biggest concern had been whether Emma had packed enough warm clothes. Now his marriage was over, his wife was facing multiple felony charges, and he'd come within seconds of being murdered. Matt found him there. "You okay?" "Emma knows. Someone posted about it on social media." Matt winced. "Yeah, word travels fast in small towns. The DA wants to meet with you tomorrow morning. We need to go over your testimony, make sure everything's solid for the grand jury." "Grand jury? This is going to trial, Ray. All three of them are facing serious charges. Gilbert's lawyer is already making noise about a plea deal, but the DA wants to make an example of this. Attempted murder, fraud, conspiracy. This isn't some white-collar crime we can sweep under the rug." Ray nodded slowly. "Good. I want them to face consequences. All of them. Even Beatrice?" Ray met Matt's gaze. "Especially Beatrice. She betrayed 15 years of marriage. She was willing to destroy me, destroy everything my grandfather built for money. For some developer who would have killed me without a second thought." His voice hardened. "Yeah, I want her to face consequences." That night, Ray stayed at a hotel. He couldn't bring himself to go back to his house. Not yet. He lay in the generic room, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything, looking for signs he'd missed. There had been so many. The way Beatrice had encouraged him to take on more debt to expand the camp, increasing his financial vulnerability. The way she'd subtly isolated him from old friends, claiming they were bad influences or holding him back. The way she'd been so insistent about him updating his will, his insurance policies, making her the beneficiary of everything. She'd been positioning pieces on a chessboard for years, and he'd been too trusting or too stupid to notice. His phone buzzed with a text from Rosa. "Mr. Ray, are you okay? I saw the news. I'm so sorry about all of this." He replied, "I'm okay, Rosa. Thank you for calling me. You saved my life." Her response came quickly. "You and Emma have been like family to me. I couldn't let them hurt you." "What happened to the house?" "Your things." Ray hadn't even thought about that. The house was in both his and Beatrice's names. His lawyer would have to sort out the divorce proceedings while criminal charges were pending. It would be messy. "Don't worry about that yet," he typed back. "I'll figure it out. You should take some time off. Paid. I'll send you 2 weeks' salary." "You don't have to do that, Mr. Ray." "Yes, I do. You've more than earned it." Another text came in, this one from an unknown number. "Mr. Shepard, this is attorney Vince Potts with Morrison & Associates. I've been retained by your wife to facilitate a conversation. She'd like to discuss a possible arrangement, too." Ray deleted it without reading the rest. Any communication would go through his own lawyer. He must have dozed off eventually, because he woke to sunlight streaming through the hotel curtains and his phone ringing. Not Matt this time. His own attorney, Bob Ayala, whom Ray had called from the police station the night before. "Ray, we need to talk," Bob said without preamble. "I've reviewed the police reports and the evidence they shared with me. This is bad. For them, I mean, good for you." That's what Matt said. Matt's right. But there's something else. "I got a call this morning from Vince Potts. He's representing Beatrice. He wants to discuss a divorce settlement that would involve her pleading guilty to reduced charges in exchange for signing over all her interests in the camp and the house." Ray sat up. "What's the catch?" "The catch is she wants you to provide a character statement to the judge, asking for leniency. She's trying to paint herself as a manipulated spouse who got in over her head." "Absolutely not." "Ray, think about it. You'd get everything. The camp, the house, full custody of any shared assets. She'd be out of your life, and she'd get a lighter sentence. Maybe probation instead of prison time. No deal, Bob. She made her choices. She can face the consequences." Bob sighed. "I figured you'd say that. For what it's worth, I agree." Her lawyer also mentioned that Julian Kimball's attorney is floating the idea of Julian testifying against Beatrice and Gilbert in exchange for a reduced sentence. That got Ray's attention. Julian turning on them? Makes sense. He's the one who physically pulled a gun, took a hostage, made explicit threats. He's facing the most serious charges. If he can pin the planning and conspiracy on the others, he might avoid life in prison. Would that work? Potentially. But here's the thing, Ray. You have leverage here. The DA needs your cooperation, your testimony. You're the victim and the key witness. If you make it clear you want maximum charges for all three of them, that carries weight. Ray thought about it. Julian had been the one to threaten him directly. Yes. But Beatrice and Gilbert had orchestrated the whole thing. They planned it, funded it, set it in motion. Julian was just the hammer they'd hired to smash Ray's life apart. No deals, Ray said finally. They all go down together, where the DA can fight it out in court. But I'm not helping any of them reduce their sentences. Understood. I'll communicate that. Now, about the civil side, you should know that Beatrice has filed for divorce. Ray laughed bitterly. Of course she has. She's claiming irreconcilable differences and asking for an equitable distribution of assets. Her lawyer is arguing that despite the criminal charges, she's still entitled to half of everything acquired during the marriage. Like hell she is. We'll fight it. Given the circumstances, the fraud, the conspiracy, the fact that she was actively trying to steal from you, we have a strong case that she should forfeit any claims. But it'll take time. Months, maybe longer. I don't care how long it takes. She doesn't get to destroy my life and then profit from it. They talked for another 30 minutes about legal strategy, financial protection, and what Ray needed to do to secure his assets. When Ray finally hung up, he felt exhausted despite having just woken up. His phone rang again immediately. This time, it was a number he recognized. Owen Parker, who owned the Wilderness Supply Store in town and had been one of Ray's grandfather's oldest friends. Ray, just heard what happened. Owen's gruff voice came through. Want you to know you've got support here. Beatrice and that slick city lawyer of hers might have some people fooled, but not us who know you. Anything you need, you just ask. It was the first of a dozen similar calls Ray would receive that day. Friends, colleagues, clients from the camp, people from town. Word had spread fast, and the community was rallying around him. It helped, though Ray felt numb from the emotional whiplash of the past 24 hours. By afternoon, Ray was back at the police station for a formal interview with the DA, a sharp woman named Lydia Davis. She was methodical, taking him through every detail of the past 2 years, looking for anything that might establish a pattern of behavior or premeditation. Mr. Shepard, she said after 2 hours of questioning, I want to be clear about what we're dealing with here. This isn't just a domestic dispute that got out of hand. What your wife, her father, and Mr. Kimball did constitutes serious organized crime. They plan to frame you for drug trafficking and financial crimes, with the ultimate goal of either incarcerating you or killing you so they could seize and sell your property. She pulled out a document. We found this in Julian Kimball's safe. It's a sale contract for your land, dated 3 weeks from now, signed by someone claiming to be you, but with your wife as the witness. They were planning to execute this the moment you were arrested or dead. Ray stared at the forged signature. It was good, too good. How did they? Your wife had access to your documents, your signature style. We found practice sheets in a locked drawer in your home office. She'd been practicing forging your signature for months. The betrayal cut deeper with each new revelation. Here's what's going to happen, DA Davis continued. We're charging all three of them with conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, fraud, forgery, and about a dozen other charges. Julian faces the most serious sentence because he physically attempted to carry out the murder. But Beatrice and Gilbert were the architects. They're equally culpable in my view. What are we looking at for sentencing? If convicted on all counts, Julian could face life without parole. Beatrice and Gilbert are looking at minimum 20 years, possibly much more. But, she paused. I won't lie to you. Defense attorneys are already scrambling. Julian's lawyer wants a plea deal. Gilbert's lawyer is claiming diminished capacity and coercion. And Beatrice's lawyer is painting her as an abused spouse who was manipulated. That's ridiculous, Ray said. I never abused her. I know, and we'll prove it. But I need you to be prepared for them to drag your name through the mud. They'll claim you were controlling, that you isolated her, that you were financially abusive, anything to make her look like a victim instead of a perpetrator. Ray felt his anger rising. So, I'm going to be put on trial even though I'm the victim? Welcome to the criminal justice system, DA Davis said dryly. But here's the good news. We have overwhelming evidence. The video from your house. The recording from the camp. The financial records. The forged documents. Julian's own words threatening your life. No jury is going to buy that you're the bad guy here. I hope you're right. I am. But Ray, and I need you to hear this. This is going to be hard. It's going to take months, maybe more than a year. There will be depositions, hearings, a trial. Your personal life will be dissected. Every argument you ever had with Beatrice will be examined. Every financial decision questioned. Are you prepared for that? Ray thought about his grandfather, about the camp, about Emma's future. Yes, he said firmly. I'm prepared, because the alternative is letting them get away with it. And I won't do that. D.A. Davis smiled for the first time. Good. Then let's make sure justice is served. 3 weeks later, Ray stood in the main lodge of his camp, looking out over the valley. The fall colors were at their peak, the mountainsides painted in brilliant reds and golds. It should have been beautiful. It should have been peaceful. Instead, Ray felt hollow. The grand jury had indicted all 3 defendants on multiple charges. Bail had been set impossibly high for Julian. He remained in custody. Gilbert had posted bail, but was under house arrest with an ankle monitor. Beatrice had also posted bail, though she was prohibited from contacting Ray or coming within 500 yards of either his home or the camp. The divorce proceedings were underway. Ray had moved back into the house after having it thoroughly cleaned and debugged. Matt had found 2 hidden cameras and an audio recorder that Beatrice had installed to monitor Ray's activities. His lawyer was using these as evidence of her premeditation and manipulation. Emma had come home for a long weekend, and they'd spent hours talking, crying, processing. She'd wanted to confront her mother, but Ray had convinced her not to. Beatrice didn't deserve the satisfaction of seeing how much she'd hurt them. The camp's business had taken a hit. Some clients had canceled bookings, uncomfortable with the negative publicity. But others had reached out in support, and new bookings were slowly coming in. Ray had hired 2 additional staff members to help pick up the slack while he dealt with the legal proceedings. Rosa had insisted on coming back to work, though Ray had told her she didn't need to. "This is my family," she'd said simply. "I'm not leaving you to deal with this alone." Now, as Ray stood in the lodge, he heard footsteps behind him. He turned to find Matt approaching, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Thought you could use this," Matt said, handing one to Ray. "Thanks." Ray took a sip. "What brings you out here?" "Got some news." Julian Kimball took a plea deal. Ray's hand tightened on the mug. "What kind of deal?" He agreed to testify against Beatrice and Gilbert in exchange for reducing the attempted murder charge to assault with a deadly weapon. He'll still face 20 to 25 years, but it takes the death penalty off the table. And Beatrice and Gilbert, their lawyers are scrambling. With Julian testifying about who planned what, who funded what, who said what, it's damning. Julian's statement includes details about meetings where all 3 of them discuss specifically how to frame you and what to do if you discover their plan. He's claiming Beatrice was actually the one who first suggested that if you wouldn't sell voluntarily, you need to be removed permanently. Ray felt sick. His wife, the woman he'd loved, had suggested his murder as casually as one might suggest a vacation destination. "There's more," Matt continued carefully. The forensic accountant found something. Beatrice has been having an affair with Julian for almost 2 years. They were planning to get married after she inherited your estate. "Married," Ray repeated numbly. There are texts between them discussing it. Julian was already house hunting in Seattle. They had a whole future planned, with your money, your land, your life's work funding it. Ray walked to the window, unable to speak for a moment. 2 years. 2 years of lying, planning, betraying. 2 years of sleeping beside him at night, while plotting to destroy him by day. "Ray, there's one more thing." Matt's voice was gentle. "Gilbert is trying to cut a deal too. His lawyer wants to talk to you directly." "Absolutely not. Hear me out." Gilbert's lawyer claims Gilbert wants to make amends. He's willing to testify against Beatrice and Julian, forfeit any claims to your property, and accept whatever sentence the DA recommends, in exchange for you agreeing not to pursue civil damages against him personally. Why would I agree to that? Because Gilbert is 72 years old and in poor health. His lawyer is arguing that prison time would essentially be a death sentence. They're asking for house arrest and probation. Ray turned to face Matt. "He helped plan my murder. He was in my home, planting drugs, forging documents. He was willing to destroy me to benefit his daughter and line his own pockets. And now he wants mercy. I'm not saying you should agree, Matt said. I'm just telling you what's being offered. The DA will make the final call, but your opinion carries weight. If you say you want him to face maximum charges, that's what she'll push for. Ray thought about Gilbert, a man who'd barely tolerated Ray from the start, who'd made it clear he thought his daughter had married beneath her station. A man who'd nevertheless been welcomed into Ray's home, invited to family dinners, included in holidays. No mercy, Ray said finally. He's an adult. He made his choices. He can face the consequences. Matt nodded. I'll let the DA know. Ray, for what it's worth, I think you're handling this with incredible strength. A lot of people would have fallen apart. I'm falling apart on the inside, Ray admitted. I'm just too stubborn to let it show. That night, unable to sleep, Ray found himself hiking one of the camp trails by moonlight. It was something his grandfather used to do, walk the land when troubled, let the wilderness provide perspective. He ended up at the highest point on the property, a rocky outcrop overlooking the valley. In the distance, he could see the lights of the town, tiny pinpricks against the darkness. How many of those lights represented people dealing with their own betrayals, their own pain, their own struggles? His phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number. Ray, it's Beatrice. I know I'm not supposed to contact you, but I'm using a friend's phone. Please, I need to explain. None of this was supposed to happen this way. I never wanted you hurt. Julia manipulated me. Can we please talk? Ray stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. He knew her lawyer would claim her phone had been stolen, that she didn't send the message. But it didn't matter. He had nothing to say to her. A second text came through. I still love you. Everything I did because I felt trapped. You were always so focused on the camp, on your grandfather's legacy. I felt invisible. Julian made me feel seen. Ray's jaw clenched. She was trying to rewrite history, paint herself as a neglected wife who strayed out of loneliness. But the evidence told a different story, evidence of calculation, premeditation, cold planning. He typed back a single message. Contact me again, and I report you for violating the restraining order. We're done, Beatrice. Forever. Then he blocked the number. Walking back down the trail, Ray felt something shift inside him. The numbness, the shock, it was burning away, replaced by clarity. He'd trusted wrongly. He'd loved someone who didn't deserve it. But he'd survived. He'd been smart enough to have security cameras, loyal enough that Rosa risked herself to warn him, careful enough to bring in proper authorities instead of trying to handle it alone. He'd done everything right, and now he'd see it through to the end. Back at the lodge, Ray opened his laptop and started making plans. The camp needed attention, repairs deferred, programs updated, marketing refreshed. He'd been so focused on survival that he'd let the business slide. No more. He pulled up the financial records Baba Yala had secured. Everything Beatrice had stolen. Every forged transaction. Every hidden transfer. The civil lawsuit would recover some of it, but Ray didn't care about the money. He cared about justice. And he was going to get it. 6 months later, the trial began. The courtroom was packed. Ray sat behind the prosecution table, flanked by Baba Yala and D.A. Davis. Across the aisle, Beatrice sat between her lawyers, her hair pulled back, wearing a conservative suit that probably cost more than Ray's truck. She looked thinner, older. When their eyes met, she looked away quickly. Gilbert sat at his own defense table, his lawyers having successfully argued for a separate trial due to conflict of interest. Julian had already been sentenced, 23 years in federal prison after his testimony and guilty plea. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Ray testified for 2 full days, walking through the history of his marriage, the warning signs he'd missed, the day of the confrontation. Beatrice's lawyers tried to paint him as a controlling husband, but D.A. Davis systematically destroyed each claim with evidence. Texts showing Ray encouraging Beatrice's independence, financial records showing her equal access to accounts, testimony from friends and colleagues showing a healthy, respectful relationship. Then came the video evidence from Ray's house. The jury watched in silence as Beatrice and Gilbert measured out white powder, practiced forging Ray's signature, discussed the best way to plant evidence. One juror visibly gasped when Gilbert casually mentioned that accidents in the mountains happen all the time. Julian's testimony was devastating. He'd kept detailed records, texts, emails, recordings of meetings. He described in clinical detail how Beatrice had approached him with the initial idea, how they developed the plan over months, how Gilbert had used his legal expertise to identify exactly what charges would put Ray away longest. She was obsessed, Julian testified, though his voice lacked emotion. He was simply trying to minimize his own culpability. She talked about how the camp was wasted on Ray, how her grandfather's legacy meant nothing because Ray refused to monetize it properly. She felt she was owed that land, that wealth. Beatrice's lawyers tried to discredit him, pointing out that he'd already pleaded guilty and had every reason to lie. But the physical evidence backed up his testimony. The forged documents, the financial transfers, the burner phone Beatrice had used to communicate with Julian, found hidden in her car. When Beatrice took the stand in her own defense, Ray watched her perform. Because it was a performance, tears at the right moments, a trembling voice when discussing her fear of Ray, wide-eyed innocence when confronted with evidence of her crimes. "I felt trapped," she said, looking directly at the jury. "Raymond is a good man in many ways, but he was married to that camp, not to me. I felt invisible in my own marriage. When Julian showed interest, when he made me feel valued, I made mistakes, but I never wanted anyone hurt. Never." D.A. Davis stood for cross-examination, and Ray could see the steel in her eyes. "Mrs. Shepard, you've testified that you never wanted anyone hurt. Is that correct?" "Yes," Beatrice said. "And yet, video evidence shows you and your father measuring out what appear to be several kilograms of a white powder substance to plant in your husband's home." "Correct." Julian said it was just to scare Ray, to convince him to sell the camp. "Scare him? By framing him for drug trafficking?" "Mrs. Shepard, do you know what the sentence is for drug trafficking in Idaho?" Beatrice's lawyer objected, but the judge overruled it. Beatrice had to answer. I don't know exactly. Let me help you. With the amount your father measured out, your husband would have faced minimum 15 years in federal prison, more likely 20 to 25. Does that sound like just scaring someone?" Julian said. "Julian testified that you originated the plan, Mrs. Shepard. That in a meeting on March 15th of last year, you explicitly stated, and I quote, 'If Ray won't sell, we'll have to make sure he can't keep it.' Do you deny saying that?" "I don't remember saying that." "You don't remember, or you didn't say it?" "I might have said something like that, but I didn't mean." "You practiced forging your husband's signature. We have 23 pages of practice sheets found in your office. Were those just in case?" My lawyer advised me. "Yes or no, Mrs. Shepard? Did you practice forging your husband's signature?" A long pause. "Yes." "Did you transfer over $300,000 from accounts you shared with your husband into an LLC owned by Julian Kimball?" "Over time, but..." "Yes or no?" "Yes." "Did you hide a camera in your husband's private office to monitor his activities?" Beatrice's composure was cracking. "That was for security." "Security, Mrs. Shepard? Or surveillance? To know when he'd be away, so you could execute your plan?" "Objection." Beatrice's lawyer stood. "Counsel is badgering the witness." Sustained. "Rephrase, Ms. Davis." "Mrs. Shepard, when did you install the camera in your husband's office?" "I don't remember exactly. Our forensic examination shows it was installed 4 months before your husband's planned arrest. That's a very specific timeline, isn't it? Almost as if you were preparing for something." The cross-examination continued for hours. By the end, Beatrice was openly crying, her carefully constructed narrative in tatters. The closing arguments were swift. Beatrice's lawyer made an impassioned plea about manipulative men and vulnerable women, but it rang hollow against the mountain of evidence. D.A. Davis methodically laid out the timeline of the conspiracy, the evidence of premeditation, the cold calculation that had gone into every step. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," she concluded, "this is not a case of a woman who made mistakes out of loneliness or desperation. This is a case of calculated, premeditated conspiracy to commit fraud and murder. The defendant planned for months, possibly years, to steal her husband's life's work and, if necessary, to end his life. She deserves no mercy because she showed none. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, their verdict was unanimous. Guilty on all counts. Beatrice's face went white. Her lawyers immediately began discussing appeals, but Ray knew it was over. The evidence was too strong, the verdict too clear. Gilbert's trial followed 2 months later, and with Julian and Beatrice already convicted, he had no defense. His jury took 3 hours to convict him as well. Sentencing came another month after that. Ray sat in the courtroom as the judge read the sentences. Julian Kimball, 23 years in federal prison, no possibility of parole before 20. Gilbert Strickland, 18 years in state prison, with possibility of parole after 12. Beatrice Shepard, 25 years in state prison, possibility of parole after 18. As Beatrice was led away in handcuffs, she turned to look at Ray one last time. He met her gaze steadily, felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Justice had been served. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, but Ray had only a brief statement prepared. Justice has been done. I'm grateful to the prosecutors, investigators, and jury who saw through the lies and manipulation. My focus now is on rebuilding my life and honoring my family's legacy. Matt found him afterward. How you doing? Better than I thought I'd be, Ray admitted. It's not closure. I don't think there is such a thing. But it's resolution. They'll face consequences. That's what matters. What's next for you? Ray thought about the camp, about Emma thriving in California, about the life he'd rebuild. Forward, he said simply. I keep moving forward. 1 year after the trial, Ray stood at the grand reopening of Shepherd's Mountain Survival Camp. He'd spent the past months renovating, expanding, and modernizing the facility. The legal battles have been costly, but the civil lawsuit against Beatrice, Gilbert, and Julian's estate had recovered most of what was stolen, plus damages. More importantly, the publicity, while initially damaging, had ultimately drawn attention to the camp. People wanted to support Ray, to be part of his story of survival and resilience. Bookings were up 200% over the previous year. Emma stood beside him, home for the summer before her senior year. She'd grown stronger through the ordeal, more focused. The betrayal had hurt her deeply, but she'd channeled that pain into purpose, excelling in her studies and beginning research on ocean conservation. Grandpa would be proud, Emma said, looking around at the crowd gathered for the reopening ceremony. You saved his legacy. Our legacy, Ray corrected. This belongs to you too. When you're ready. Rosa circulated through the crowd with trays of refreshments, her face beaming. Ray had promoted her to facility manager. She'd earned it, and more. Her loyalty, her courage in that crucial moment, had saved his life. Matt was there too, along with D.A. Davis and Baba Yala. They become friends through the ordeal, bound by the shared experience of seeing justice done. As Ray prepared to give a speech welcoming everyone, his phone buzzed with an email notification. His lawyer, forwarding an update from the prison system. Beatrice Shepard has filed an appeal claiming ineffective counsel and new evidence. Appeal denied by circuit court. Ray deleted the email without reading further. Beatrice would probably file appeals for years, grasping at straws, trying to reduce her sentence. It didn't matter. She was locked away, unable to hurt him or anyone else. He stepped up to the microphone, looking out at the crowd. Friends, clients, supporters, staff. People who'd stood by him, believed in him, helped him rebuild. Thank you all for being here today, Ray began. This camp has been in my family for nearly 40 years. My grandfather built it with his hands, instilled in me a love for this land and these mountains. A year ago, I almost lost it all. Not to nature or bad business, but to betrayal. He paused, choosing his words carefully. I'm not going to sugarcoat what happened. People I trusted tried to destroy everything my grandfather built, everything I'd worked for. They came close to succeeding, but they underestimated 3 things: the strength of loyalty, the power of truth, and the importance of community. Ray gestured around the camp. Every person here represents one of those things. Rosa, who had the courage to warn me when she saw danger. Detective Matt Bender, who pursued truth regardless of personal connection. All of you who believed in me and this camp when it would have been easier to walk away. This reopening isn't just about facilities and programs. It's about proving that integrity matters, that justice exists, that good can triumph over greed and betrayal. My grandfather taught me that survival isn't just about skills, it's about character. Today, we honor that lesson. The crowd applauded. Ray caught Emma's eye. She was crying but smiling. Over the following months, life settled into a new normal. Ray threw himself into the camp, developing new programs, building partnerships with schools and organizations. He started dating cautiously, nothing serious, just remembering how to trust again slowly. Emma visited regularly, bringing friends from school to experience the camp. She talked about coming back after graduation, maybe developing a water-based survival program, combining her marine biology expertise with the camp's wilderness focus. The civil lawsuit continued to wind through courts. Ray's lawyers were pursuing not just financial recovery, but also ensuring that none of the conspirators could profit from their crimes. No book deals, no media appearances for pay, nothing. They tried to steal his life. He'd make sure they gained nothing from it. Sometimes, late at night, Ray still thought about those moments in the parking lot when Julian had pulled the gun. How close he'd come to dying. How different Emma's life would have been if things had gone the other way. But mostly, he focused on what he'd gained. Clarity about who mattered in his life, strength he didn't know he possessed, and a renewed commitment to the values his grandfather had taught him. 2 years after the trial, Ray received a letter forwarded through his lawyer. It was from Beatrice, written from prison. He almost threw it away unopened. But curiosity won. Dear Raymond, it began in handwriting that still looked familiar despite everything. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I need you to know that I am truly sorry. Not sorry I got caught. Sorry for what I did. The person who planned those things, who betrayed you, who was willing to see you destroyed. I don't recognize her anymore. Prison gives you a lot of time to think, to realize what you've lost. I lost a good man, a good life, a daughter who can barely stand to hear my name. I lost myself. For what? Money I'll never see? Land I'll never walk on? A man who's serving his own sentence and won't even return my letters? I know this doesn't matter to you. I know I destroyed any right to your compassion. But in whatever small way it's worth, I want you to know you deserved better. Emma deserved better. I'm glad you survived me. I'm glad the camp is thriving. I'm glad Emma is succeeding. Those are the only good things to come from this nightmare. I won't contact you again. This isn't manipulation or a play for sympathy. It's just closure, I suppose. For me, if not for you. I'm sorry, Raymond. I'm so sorry. Beatrice. Ray read the letter twice, then carefully placed it in a file with other legal documents. Not for sentimentality, but for completeness. The story needed all its pieces. He didn't write back. There was nothing to say. Beatrice had made her choices. She'd live with them. That evening, Ray hiked up to his grandfather's memorial as the sun set over the mountains. The valley below was painted in shades of gold and amber, the camp's lights beginning to twinkle in the gathering darkness. I kept my promise, Gramps, Ray said to the memorial stone. The land stays. The camp thrives. And I'm still standing. The wind through the pines sounded almost like approval. Ray's phone buzzed, a text from Emma. Landing at 6 p.m. tomorrow. Can't wait to show you my research. Maybe we can talk about that water survival program? I've got ideas. Ray smiled, typing back. Can't wait. I'll pick you up. Love you. Love you too, Dad. Proud of you. As he walked back down the mountain, Ray felt the last pieces of his anger and pain fading. Not forgotten, the scars remained, but healed, stronger for having survived. Beatrice was behind bars. Gilbert was behind bars. Julian was behind bars. Justice had been served, fully and completely. They'd faced decades of consequences for their actions, while Ray moved forward with his life, his daughter, his camp. Some might say revenge was a dish best served cold. Ray preferred to think of it as justice served exactly right thorough, legal, and permanent. The camp's lights grew brighter,